Good afternoon to you all, and thank you very much for your words, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you today. I'll try to make a brief presentation on our program, Horizon 2020, in the next, that will be, hopefully, be approved by the Parliament in the next coming weeks, and therefore be able to operate as from the first call supposedly to be launched in December the 11th, and then be in operation for the next 7 years. So let me tell you which are the main highlights. Here you see what was, and the only thing that is important to signal, this represents the multi-annual financial framework, that is the budget for next year's for the total Commission, and the total budget is less than we have currently, so this 60 billion is less than what we currently have, and in spite of this significant decrease of the budget, the member states and the Parliament, the co-decisions of the budget authority, as it were, have decided to increase the budget for research and innovation. And I think that in the current context of Europe, the fact that we have in this restricted budget an increase of roughly between 30 and 33%, depending on how we count it, of the current framework program, I think is good news, although we cannot hide that the general environment, financial environment, is very difficult. Yet, there is a clear correlation between investment in research and growth, and here you see that this is clearly the case in the countries in Europe. I mean, you see outliers, but in general, this goes quite straightforward, and yet our political masters do not follow always this criteria. That is, this graph tries to plot in blue the public spending, in red the spending or the investment in research and innovation. You see that this is in the very recent years, and that is in the middle of the crisis, 2007, 2011, and you see that some countries have invested more than the increase in public spending, yet others, such as Italy, Spain, and the UK, have invested significantly less, are cutting substantially and radically their budgets for research and innovation, even when there is a clear increase in public spending. So, and I want to mention this because I think it's alarming for everyone in Europe. If there is one way to get out of this crisis, will certainly not be cutting the budgets on research and innovation. Probably I don't need to convince you, but this is just to provide evidence that the behavior of several member states and the whole policy of austerity maybe is not working that well. This is the share, to prove that the share of knowledge production is decreasing as compared to the total knowledge production in the world. And you see how across the years we are the EU27 roughly maintaining the same amount, and yet the others are increasing more than we do, except maybe for Japan, that also stays more or less the same pace. And the graph shows the private expenditure that is more alarming. You see that in Europe, in the last years, has decreased, and this was before the crisis really exploded, a little bit, 0.02. The US has decreased 0.7, but the others, including Japan, South Korea, and China, have increased very substantially. And here I show you the innovation gap. This is an indicator that merges 12 dimensions, if you wish. And you see that our gap with the United States and Japan is, if at all, increasing, slightly increasing. But certainly what is very clear is that the gap that we have with China is decreasing much faster. So, which means that in very few, in a period of time relatively short, will be catch up by the BRIC countries and will keep the gap with those who are ahead of us, that is Japan and United States, is not decreasing at all. So the situation, I don't want to paint you as very rosy, as you see, and that's why we think that it is very important to, and Horizon 2020 is just a drop in the ocean of the effort, but I think that is important that we give signals so that to see whether others can follow up in this direction. So we were cut as from our initial proposal of about 10 billion, but still we had 70 billion, which is an increase as from what we currently have of, as I said, 30% more or less. This, we want to respond to the biggest problem in Europe, which is certainly unemployment, and this is by far and large problem number one. And then also that to deal with other aspects of that research may help, such as the big societal challenges, and I mentioned here just livelihood, safety, and environment, to mention but 3 of them. What's new in this framework program? That will have just a single program, that we have all the others together, that we want to be much closer to innovation, that we don't want to discuss about scientific disciplines, but about societal challenges, and this for 2 reasons. The first one is because we want to have a program that is very much problem-oriented, and the second, because we need to convey the message to society that science is not about scientists, but about society. And we are trying to respond to societal challenges, societal needs, not the request of this or that scientific community. And finally, we want to have simplified access. This is very easy because we are so complicated that anything is simpler, but we try to very hard to make it simpler. And well, I'll discuss that later on. That's not easy, but I'll try to make the point on this. It is around three priorities: excellent science, industrial leadership, and societal challenge. In excellent science, why? Because we need to fund fundamental research that is essential. There will never be applied research if there is anything on which to apply to. So this is clear that we need to fund this research that is the farthest from the market. We need to attract and retain talent, and if we ever reach the 3%, that was the goal, the 3% of the GDP invested in research and development, that was the goal for 2010, now is the goal for 2020. We'll see whether we ever reach that target. But if we would to reach that target, that means that we would need to absorb this increase in investment 1 million more researchers in Europe, which is a substantial amount of researchers, and the way to attract them is creating opportunities here. And finally, the access to infrastructures. Here is one of the few areas in which we can say that we've done a major step in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years in bringing these infrastructures, research infrastructures in Europe, accessible to many more researchers than in the past. Talk about budget, which is always important. European Research Council, you know what it is about. This does roughly what any national research program does, but the justification to do this, and you know that the Union, the Commission to intervene, needs to apply the principle of subsidiarity, that is, we only intervene if there is an added value as compared to what the member states can do. And here the reason is that the competition at European level certainly would produce higher quality in science than in any national country. And that's why we have increased substantially the amount. The increase is about double of what they have in the current framework program 7 framework program. So this is an increase of 100%. Future and emerging technologies, it has an increase not as substantial but important. The Marie Curie fellowships has a substantial increase from roughly 50% increase. And research infrastructure, this is not substantial, but has an increase of, say, 30 or, yeah, between 30 and 40% increase as compared to what we have. So we can say that in excellent science, that is in basic research, we have quite an important increase of the budget. And I think it is very important because those programs have already prestige, I would say. They have very low success rates, and they've been essential to structure what the European research area is. The next big pillar is industrial leadership. We want here is trying to respond in this excellent, in this industrial leadership, to the needs of the industry, and we want to invest in key technologies and having a closer look to innovation. We want to be attractive to the private investment, which in Europe, as you know, is not enough, and certainly looking at this very difficult field of SMEs that, of course, are the main part of the private sector in Europe, and yet they are very difficult to, they have difficult access to funds to develop. So this is a main challenge. Everybody speaks about this, but it's not easy to design tools that are really useful for SMEs, which, as I say, they are responsible for 90% of the jobs in Europe, and therefore, if our main problem is unemployment, we need to take care of this sector as a priority. The funding is difficult to compare on what we have, but the leading enabling technologies, 13 billion, which is an increase, a substantial increase as from the past. The access to risk financing, that means financial instruments that may have, they had in FP7 and may have, hopefully in the future, an important leverage effect of the private investment. This mainly to facilitate loans and to invest to decrease the risk of the loans, that is, therefore, the beneficiaries of the loans can have lower interest rates to pay back. And finally, SMEs, the figure of 600 is not important. What is important is that we have the commitment to invest 20% of the budget in SMEs across the whole program. And finally, societal challenges. As I said, these are the main societal challenges as politically defined, and there are 6 of them, and well, 7 now, and making a lot the accent, the emphasis on multidisciplinarity, but and trying to put the accent on innovation at the very end of the research cycle. Here you see that health has certainly an increase, as well as food, energy, quite substantial one, transport, important as well, climate, inclusive and reflective society, that means social sciences, humanities, and all the problems related to developing innovation schemes and social innovation, and then secure societies, that's mainly about security and the security investment. We have these 2 science with and for society, that is how to involve society in the whole scientific development and spreading excellence and widening participation. This is the political agreement that we have, trying to have as many low-performing countries into the program. That is, all the strategies that we have for those that are losers in the framework program that can catch up. And we try to close the gap of those universities, countries, regions that are not very good in research. And this is something that in cohesion funds, in the structural funds, the winners are those who have less. In research and development, the winners are those who are better fit for research and innovation. We also want to put the accent in public-private partnerships. We have a very good experience with joint technology initiatives, and the budget for these initiatives has substantially increased. Public-private partnerships is mainly the instrument of Ethernets and 185s. That is when member states integrate their programs together. We tell them, if you integrate your programs together, we'll contribute substantially to your budget. And then European innovation partnerships, which are not funding instruments, but the way to put together and coordinate actions that have a common goal and common policy, a common program, and put them all together. EIT, as you know, trying to put together research, innovation, and training and education, and this has a huge increase as what it had from the past. In fact, in FP7 had 300 million, it's almost 10 times what they have, although, of course, since they had a small budget, that may be not so important, but in terms of proportion, it's a huge increase. And finally, the Joint Research Center that, as you know, is a direct research that we do in the Commission. Simplification, we want to be much simpler, as I said, and we want that the rules apply to everyone applying for the program, and that the financial regulation stays without derogation for everyone. This was certainly for the Commission a top priority, was contested by many of the recipients that consider that changing the different schemes, some are more beneficial for them in the current scheme that simple one for everyone. On average, all of them are making more, but individually some may lose. This has been one of the most difficult things to negotiate with the Council and the Parliament, but finally all of them have accepted 100% of the eligibility cost and 25% for indirect costs. In the end, that means that those receiving money, they will receive more money, but of course this has the downside. That means that there will be less money for those, for research, because if every researcher gets more money, in the end, the total money is less to do research. But this was the political agreement. We want evaluation criteria always, as we did, simple, excellence, impact, and implementation, although maybe, and this is something that we are now discussing, and there are very hot discussions about this, to put more accent, more weight, if you wish, in the impact, if we want to be more on the demonstration, on the innovation side. We should give more weight to the impact rather than on the excellence. And excellence has always been the driving criterion, and here maybe we should equal excellence to the impact, which is, of course, giving more weight to innovation. And having new forms of funding that foster innovation. And finally, we would like to be the program in the world more open to the outside, to the international cooperation, and want to have this everywhere. The grants should have simple rules. That means that everything should be together. We finally agreed, and this was not easy with the accounting, the Court of Auditors, to get rid of the timesheets. So that's very important. Well, achievement, not easy, I can tell you, but this was what we agreed, and less controls and audits. And it is very usual that we spend more resources in controlling than the money we are saving with the control. So, and this is a typical thing, but we are bound by the error rate that the Parliament fixes us. So to agree with the error rate, we are very low in error rate, but then we have so many controls that makes our life very complicated. And when I say our, I mean researchers and the Commission. And then intellectual property, this is a very difficult field. We're trying to improve the way IP works, but this is a complicated issue. I mean, I can enter into details if you wish. And certainly open access to research, this is something that is mandatory for everyone in the framework program. That is that everyone will have to publish in open access. And we think that this is a very important achievement because these days, I think that to publish, I mean, the traditional publishing way has or needs to disappear. Oops. So to summarize, simple and more coherent participation rules. We want to increase the trust and decrease the control. So trust, in principle, researchers, we should not think that they are crooks, but honest people, and even more honest than the average population, which is, of course, an act of faith, but I think that this is, and we'll like that to work this way, to have one single funding rate with single flat rates for indirect cost, and to speed up with the time to grant. This is, for us, very difficult to reach the 8 months, but we are mandated and we need to follow the mandate of the Council and the Parliament. Oops, no, sorry. We want to contribute certainly everything that fosters the European research area. This is essential that we are exemplary and we give incentive for people to go along European research area, that is having open recruitment, fostering gender policies, open access, knowledge transfer quick, and so on and so forth. So we want this to be at the center of what we do, with the assumption that working together, the experience of the single market has been very fruitful for the European economy, and we think that the fact that we open up all research systems, all national research systems, will also have and also has a beneficial effect, not only for science, but also for innovation and for the economy. We want the SMEs to participate much more with, as I said, a target of 20% of the total budget that goes to SMEs, being more simple, a new SME instrument that will go all across the societal challenges, with dedicated activities for those SMEs that are very research intensive, and access, allowing access to the financial instruments. As you know, up till now, the EIB, which is the main, the European Investment Bank, which is the main bank working with the financial instruments, only starts operating at very high loans over and above, say, 50 million euros, which is not the typical budget or fund that any SME needs. So we are cutting this so that they accept much lower loans. Socioeconomic sciences and humanities should be mainstreamed across all the programs, and this is very important. And we want widening, that is, as I said, the catch-up of those that do worse, and this mainly through instruments in which they couple themselves with those performing very well, and they make teams and projects together. And for this, there will be also funding. The international cooperation, as I said, we want to be the program more open to anyone from any other country wishing to participate with us. The only thing that we change is that for those who have more money than us or as much money as us, so not only US, Japan, and Canada and Australia, but also the BRICS will not receive funding from the framework program, and only will qualify those developing countries that will receive money. The others will participate on an equal basis, so they fund their researchers, we fund ours. The next steps, as you see, we want, as I said, we want to launch the first calls in December, 11 December, to launch the first calls. Hopefully, if there is hopefully the approval by the Parliament in the next coming weeks. And here I finish. Thank you very much for your attention. And if there are any questions, I don't know if you have foreseen this.